We took a quick break in the wash. We're gonna get out of here just to make sure that no one wants to be caught in a flash flood or anything. I think it's a pretty low risk today, but
what's up, YouTube? Back at it again. This is part 2 of the Wednesday morning ride from earlier, well, I guess last week now. But yeah, we got a pretty decent monsoon that came through, which made the trail conditions just awesome. It was a great time, and definitely appreciated the cool off with the rain. It made a few things a little bit more difficult, but overall I think it improved the ride. It just made it that much more fun, and you know, we just had an awesome ride. You can see it's coming down pretty good. The camera doesn't pick it all up, but
I'm having the best time right now. Let me get a courtesy wipe going here.
we ended up keeping it pretty low-key, stayed on some probably lower level sea rider trails, I would say. Stuff that was pretty flowy, a few little very minor obstacles. It's a trail we run all the time, and we just kind of came out there to, you know, escape a little bit, get a little morning ride in, and got lucky with the monsoon and the rain, which kind of kept things really interesting. Luke was trying out his new bike. I'm out here with the Desert DRZ. He's right behind me here. But yeah, it was just phenomenal. We had the best time in the rain. I would say the only downside was, you know, the monsoons here in Arizona move in pretty fast, and they leave just as fast. So later in the ride, sun came out and it just got incredibly hot and humid. But at that point, we were already on our way back to the vehicles and did our 30 miles, and you know, we're calling it. But yeah, the nice thing was it kept the dirt, at least in the area where we were riding here with the monsoon, pretty. It was like the perfect amount of water. So we had a couple of puddles build up, but really just kept the dirt really nice. The other part of the ride that we went on, you know, the monsoons are pretty dense and small, so the other half of the ride didn't get any rain, and so it was back to being a dust bowl and just hot. But this part was, like I said, just epic. So we're riding, and I just found this little guy here. I don't know if it was I don't think it was a turtle. I think it was a tortoise. But
Here you go, little guy.
we just wanted to move him off the trail just in case someone else was coming along. We didn't see anybody else in the parking lot, but you know, I think those desert tortoises, you know, I don't think they're endangered or anything, but you know, no one wants to run over wildlife on the trail, and he did kind of look like a rock, so you know, I just kind of moved him a few feet off the trail. I was told it's a good idea to keep him pointed in the same direction, so that's what I did, and hopefully he made it to wherever he was going safely. on this ride, I've been keeping the bike in the white map mostly. I switched to the green map one time, and what I noticed in the green map, with it being wet, and since the water here kind of stands on top, it doesn't soak in very easily, that in the green map, even with the TE is definitely much softer than Luke's EX, at least how the power delivers and how the RPMs climb. But in the green map, I kept lighting up the rear tire. It was just spinning everywhere. So I kept it in the white map, and I really enjoyed it. It kept traction really well. I could jump on the throttle and just kind of, get after it at half to 3/4 throttle, and the tire wasn't spinning out. I am running a Shinko 505 cheater, so maybe that helped a lot too with the weather, or with the conditions. The rock, loose rocks, and the water. Maybe that Shinko this is ideal conditions for that tire or whatever. But the white map with that tire and these conditions just seem to be like a golden combination. I felt really good on the bike. I felt like I could push it a little bit in the white map. And I do have the TSP ERM, which I think drastically improved the white map performance on this bike. Before I had the TSP ERM kit on here, I didn't use the white map a lot. It just felt not underpowered, but kind of burbly. It would load up. I would get on the throttle and it would bog just for, maybe a split second or two, but enough to make it difficult to do certain things. So I feel like it made a significant difference. I think your mileage may vary. If you're a green map only rider, maybe save the $500. It did improve the green map a little bit too, but I don't feel like it's as significant. And this is a C rider's view of it. So that's just my opinion. But so take it for what you will. But $500 seems to me well worth it for the white map performance. Alright, we got Luke, Desert DRZ, ahead of us here on this flowy section of trail, and we were just kind of taking it easy here. I wanted to get some cool footage of him riding, and that's what we were aiming to do. It's still a little bit of rain, but you can see the sky's clearing up at this point. Still plenty of puddles on the trail and all that kind of stuff, and again, tons of traction. So Luke was crushing it on this bike. It's only his second time, I believe, out on the bike. Actual trails, not just like a break-in ride or something like that. So he seemed to really like it. I ended up riding his bike. Maybe I'll just put that ride in a separate video, me riding his bike. But initially, just since I'm on my bike here, what I noticed is his bike had a lot of power. I think the GasGas is in the white map. I'm not 100% sure. It doesn't have a map switch on it, but what I noticed mostly is that it revs really fast, way faster than my TE. And I'm sure the top end power is a little bit more as well, but that was the main thing I noticed, is just how much it revved, and the speed of it, how fast it actually did rev compared to my bike. So if I would get on the gas on my bike, you kind of get this, little lull of just kind of rolling through the throttle. And on his, it was like very snappy. The RPMs climbed almost instantly. And that fits a lot of people's riding styles. Obviously, it fits his. He's always been a cross-country bike guy. All of his bikes have been cross-country bikes, so I think it feels pretty natural to him. For me, it was a little bit too snappy, but not uncontrollable. I think maybe the green map in his bike would be just a little too spicy for me. right, coming up here, we've seen a lot of Ocotillos blown over, or maybe it's just the rain, but right here I have to duck down and kind of go under it. It gets Luke pretty good and drags him around, but we just encountered a bunch of them on the trail this time for some reason that were laying over on the ground. They looked like they were dead, but Ocotillos look like that a lot, so I don't know, maybe the wind or the storms have just been blowing them over more this year, but I've seen more this year than I have any other year riding out here. Alright, at this point I'm riding in the green map, and I noticed I just can't go as fast as I was earlier because, you know, every time I hit a little bit of a bump or something like that where the tire doesn't have as much pressure on the ground, it breaks traction. I'm sure that's just me as a rider too. Maybe I'm getting on the gas a little too much when I shouldn't be or whatever, but yeah, I just seemed like I just didn't have the same kind of traction. Here I switched back to the white map and I feel way more comfortable. I'm bringing the bike out a little bit more, and you can tell I'm just going at least 5 to 10 miles an hour faster. Maybe not 10, but definitely 5. I could definitely feel the difference. So part of that between the white map and green map is, you know, like I said with my Beta 350, even though it's a race edition, it's not a crazy powerful bike. I think it's, you know, a 42 horsepower 350, which is still a decent amount, but it's a very soft hitting power. And I'm still pretty quick on the bike for me, you know. I'm not an A-level rider. I'm a C guy, a mid-pack C guy in the 40 plus. So take that for what you will. But having the fastest bike doesn't make you a faster rider. Sometimes it's better to have a little less power and push the bike faster than it is to have a very fast bike. And it took me a couple of years to learn that. I noticed it on the Beta 390 I had, but definitely feel it on this 300, especially today, that I was faster in the white map, just the less powerful map. On my Beta, I am pretty quick. You know, I'm faster on that than I was on, you know, other bikes that I've owned that were more, or just had a snappier throttle. Even my GasGas EX300, I feel like, you know, other than the bottom end, the top end power on that thing, I think was higher than the Beta. At least it felt that way. It pulled really hard, where my Beta is just kind of consistent, a good amount of torque down low, and I feel like I'm faster on the Beta. So, you know, just keep that in mind. If you're maybe a newer rider or a novice rider or whatever, and you want to try and push yourself, for me, what's worked the best is getting a bike that has a more manageable power level and pushing that power further than riding a faster bike easy, if that makes sense. Alright, so we're in, obviously it's the same video. This is maybe 5 minutes later. You can see sun's out, we're in a different part of the desert here, and you can see the dust up ahead. I let Luke take off a little bit ahead of me, and I wanted to see if I could catch him. I kind of do, but it's a ways down the road here. I think he kind of went slower when we were, you know, looking at trail conditions or whatever. But he had a great pace. He was absolutely flying on this EX300. I'm pushing it pretty hard. This is about as fast as I can ride, and you know, he's hauling. So one other thing I want to say about at least the newer generation Austrian bikes, so KTM, GasGas, and Husky. On my bike here, I've noticed, and I think others have had this issue too, where the saddles of the tank, because the fuel pump doesn't have a sump down there, the bike can cut out if you start running low on fuel. And it's supposed to splash up there and kind of keep things working. And on this ride it did, but some of my rides in Utah that we were doing that were, getting up there, 40 miles or so, 35 to 40 miles, some of you have to just take some double track to get out, just easy double track, probably a couple miles, sometimes, 5-7 miles of double track or something like that. And you're just kind of sitting on the bike cruising. And I got super annoying. The bike kept just running out of gas and dying. I had to at one point I had to stop and kind of lay the bike down on either side and switch the fuel around. Other times I could feel it coming while I was riding, and I would just stand up and hop on the bike and bounce it around, get fuel to splash up there, and then it would run fine for a minute or two, and then it would just die. So just keep that in mind if you're looking at these bikes, and if you are someone that does longer rides.
Second gear.
So Luke and I are doing a second gear pull here. You can kind of see the speedo. We're up at like 63 or 64 there. We did another one where I hit about 68 to 69, somewhere around there I could see on the camera. And I felt like his bike was pulling on mine, which is to be expected. It's a faster bike.
Is my least favorite part about dirt biking.
Alright, you can hear me. I'm kind of talking to myself and goofing off here. I'm really just trying to stay calm. I'm not doing too bad, and this hill isn't terrible. The camera obviously doesn't do it justice. It's steep, but it's not crazy.
All the time.
You can hear I'm kind of having a good time with it. I'm more just making fun of myself because I really do need to get better at, it's not necessarily the downhill, it's managing the brakes. So especially the rear brake, it's just a shortcoming of my riding right now. I need to do a little bit better and work on that. I need to actually focus on practicing rear brake modulation, not locking up the rear tire, or when to lock up the rear tire and all that kind of stuff. So, it's just a gap in my riding that I got to get better on.
Right in the shoulder. Let me get this out of here. I thought for sure I was going to miss that choya. Came out and bit me. I can still feel the needles in there. It's a pretty sick trail. Blowing my head off this choya now.
So this downhill isn't terrible, but I stop anyway because I don't have the best control, and my fear is going down here and getting stuck in the rut or going over the bars and kind of flying into Luke down there. So I kind of stop, let him go through it first before I just chase him down. I don't want the bike toppling down on somebody else or anything. This part here, we're kind of heading back to the vehicle, and you know, Luke's leading, just trying to get some more footage. I like the footage of seeing other riders ride, so this is more of just a personal preference for me. But it's also pretty cool footage, you know, trying to keep pace with somebody else, and I think it's good practice for the races, you know, being used to being back there in the dust and all that kind of stuff. So one thing I noticed on my Husky versus my buddy Scott's, he has mine's a 2026 TE, his is a 2025 TE Heritage Edition, so pretty much the same bike. And I don't know if it's something wrong with my Brembo clutch, but his clutch pull feels significantly lighter than mine, and Luke, his clutch feels significantly lighter than mine. He has a brake tech clutch on his bike, and I don't, for whatever reason, this TE specifically just has a harder, stiffer clutch, even harder than my Brembo on the Beta. The Beta one's really nice and light. So I don't know, I think I got to do a little investigating there and figure out what's going on. It's not terrible, but it's definitely, I feel like it's heavier than it should be.
That thing heat. Got really good pace. I'm actually pretty tired trying to keep up with him here.
Alright, we were just making our way back to the vehicles, and I took a wrong turn. I've been over here before, but I never really noticed these they're little climbs, maybe, you know, 20 feet high, 25 feet high at the most.
No,
but
that's up
the
here.
cool thing is there's like these little rock ledges at the top.
But these look, anything interest you?
Not any of these ones.
I might,
So the hard part about this is when you see something like this and it's not part of the trail, you get in your head. At least I do. You know, from talking to Luke, it sounds like he does too. If it was on the trail and we came upon it, we would just run it. But when you're out here looking at things, you know, you kind of tend to second guess yourself. I decided I'm just going to go for one of them, and I just picked one with a pretty straight run up. Nice little rock ledge up there at the top. Made it no problem. The run-up helps a lot. You know, when you got to come out of a turn and hit something like that, it can be a lot more difficult. At least for us. I mean, like I said, we're sea riders.
That one's not as hard as it looks. It's straight on and it's easy.
That was sexy. Real trail daddy now.